Well, we are still in Boris watch. And even though there has been even more pressure applied on the Prime Minister now, he still hasn't, shall we say, as many MPs I think are expecting him to do, to quote, do the right thing and resign himself. As we said before on the Good Morning Walk, there is a process, of course, to essentially the MPs to remove, obviously, Boris Johnson. First of all, it relies on the MPs themselves sending letters to the 1922 committee. And then after that, then will come the secret ballot. And as we said before, MPs have to be very, very confident that they can actually win that secret ballot, primarily being because it's a secret ballot. You would not know who and who hasn't voted for, that, shall we say, to give Boris the boot and who's asked him to stay. Hence why, just as there are many, all those Tory MPs saying, Boris must resign. And again, I think only 3 MPs have said publicly that they've sent a letter, I believe, so far to this date. If it did come down to that, and it came down to that vote of no confidence, MPs are now going to be looking very shifty at each other, thinking, well, who's voted for what? And obviously, as I've also said, made very clear yesterday, one thing that Labour and especially other opposition parties need to make very clear, the fact that the Tory MPs themselves are talking up this big game about getting Boris Johnson to resign. They're not doing a whole lot about it themselves. So we have to really get across the idea that this is also part of the Tory acceptance, that their inaction is a part of accepting Boris Johnson's actions for partygate, and that they themselves don't want to hold Boris Johnson accountable because, well, in the future, they might have to hold themselves accountable for other actions that, well, they don't want to do. So, as always, let's dive into this and find out a bit more about Operation Save Big Dog, the apparent plan drawn up by Boris Johnson to try and save himself. So before we do jump into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a monetization link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who support the channel that way. So let's dive into this. This comes from The Independent with the title of Operation Save Big Dog. Boris Johnson draws up plan for officials to quit over Partygate so he can keep his job. And this is, I think, very, very interesting because this appears to have been a plan leaked within Whitehall itself. So Boris Johnson is drawing up a list of officials to offer resignations over Partygate in a bid to try and salvage his premiership, The Independent has learned. Dubbed Operation Save Big Dog by the Prime Minister himself, the blueprint includes a drive to work out which heads should roll following the publication of the senior official Sue Gray's findings, as well as highlighting the Prime Minister's achievements according to sources. Officials have also started using the code name, using this very code name the Independent understands. Dan Rosenfield, Boris Johnson's chief of staff, and Martin Reynolds, his private secretary and author of the Bring Your Own Booze email, have both been noted as possible departures. While putting names to the plan is a matter of hot debate, a more broadly accepted idea is that at least one senior political appointee and a senior official must be seen to leave Downing Street over this affair, as both groups share the blame, 2 Whitehall sources have said. A former Tory cabinet minister told The Independent that although they backed Mr. Johnson, they believed a root and branch overhaul of Number 10 and parts of the Cabinet Office would prove essential to move on from Partygate. It would be at least a bare minimum to translate the corrosion into action, they said. The Save Big Dog plan includes a communications grid in the lead up to the investigation conclusion and beyond. This compromises lines for supportive ministers to take in press interviews, emphasizing a contrite prime minister and listening to his achievements amid the difficult choices posed by the pandemic. The operation also includes sounding out support among backbenchers and for possible leadership rivals, including Chancellor Rishi Sunak and Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, and even the Foreign Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. Mr. Hunt is unlikely, though, to command enough support to win the leadership, but number 10 aides do believe that he could play an important role in any leadership contest. The plan does reflect how precarious the position in Downing Street and the Cabinet Office has become following the slew of highly detailed reports on parties amid the COVID-19 restrictions. On Friday, the former Director General of the government's COVID task force posted an apology on social media for holding leaving drinks in the Cabinet Office during the coronavirus restrictions days before the Christmas back in 2020. Kate Jones, the chief executive of Sheffield City Council, said that she was cooperating with the probe by senior civil servant Sue Gray and admitted to gathering with drinks in our office. It also followed by an apology from Downing Street to Buckingham Palace after reports of the Daily Telegraph and 2 other number 10 parties were held on the eve of Prince Philip's socially distanced funeral. Officials have also refused to confirm or deny if Boris Johnson was aware of these parties, after he admitted to at least attending one of the drinks parties and was pictured at a second. On Friday, the Prime Minister's spokesperson said it is deeply regrettable that this took place and at a time of national mourning, and number 10 has apologised to the palace. It is also not clear if Downing Street has admitted in the apology to the palace to having breached COVID rules with the social gathering. One of the gatherings was a party for Mr. Johnson's Director of Communications, James Slack, who said on Friday that the event should not have happened at the time that it did. Downing Street also refused to comment on the existence of the plan to save Mr. Johnson, but when asked about the name Operation Save Big Dog, a spokesperson said, "We absolutely do not recognise this phrase." The polling for the Independent revealed that voters are indeed deserting Mr. Johnson over the party scandal, with at least 70% calling for him to quit and almost as many dismissing his Commons apology as bogus. The survey by Sananta found that just 21% actually backed the Prime Minister to stay in power. And just as worrying for the embattled leader is at least 68% did not consider his apology, which he claimed he did not realise for, quote, bringing your own booze, gathering a gathering in his garden was a party to be genuine. So this is, again, yet more and more pressure now piling on the Prime Minister to resign. And where this goes this week is anyone's guess. If it turns out that this turns out to be true, this could also play very badly against Johnson, because we've also had a couple of ministers come out and say, look, it's not just if, a couple of people in Whitehall or, the number 10 resign, Boris must also resign as well. So there's a lot of Conservative MPs especially, who are setting out this stall. Now, I've said, again, at the beginning of this video, that if the Conservative MPs do nothing, even though they are, quote, condemning the Prime Minister, but do nothing to hold him to account or actually, get him to, force him into resigning, then we have to portray their actions, or should we say their inaction, as support for the Prime Minister. That will be, I think, the next crucial phase. And I think that's what I've said, like Angela Rayner or at least Keir Starmer needs to do at the next PMQs. It should not be an address, a question to the Prime Minister. He should be asking the question to the people that are sitting next to him and behind him, going, hey, you're saying this guy should resign. He hasn't. You're saying all last week he should resign. He hasn't. You've got a mechanism for doing this, and yet it seems you haven't activated that mechanism. So I can only conclude that you must be very supportive of the Prime Minister's actions and address them that way, and say that, your inaction is a sign of approval of the Prime Minister's actions during Partygate, and that will really, really rile up the Tories then. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all